from the audience members to ask some questions. So we don't have time for a lot, but you right here.
Me?
Yeah, you.
I'd like to address this one to Steven Lisberger. I'd like to hear a little bit more about some spiritual beliefs that influenced you when you were designing the story. I see those in the film, and I wanted to know what sort of beliefs you held at the time and how they influenced the story.
Yeah, I was very much into the spiritual components in the film. And someone came to a screening of the film at Roger Ebert's festival all the way from Germany, and he said to me, I just want to know, are those in there intentionally? I said, yes. He said, okay, now I'll go back to Germany. They really are. I think that I thought about it a lot. You know, this was a long time ago. I think that one of the core spiritual beliefs is embodied in the idea that the programs look up to us as gods. And if you it's easier to describe it if you think of kids looking up to their parents as gods. And there's something spiritual about that relationship because it forces the parent to try to live up to that. So something intangible, something sacred, you know, based on love and belief from the child is happening. And so, you know, to me, that was a sacred relationship. And I saw how we were at a crossroads now. We were going to try to create a doppelganger of this world. And here it was perfect. You know, we were starting at the beginning. And it could either bring out just the best, you know, all the best in us, or it could bring out the worst in us. And I became fascinated with that, you know, that concept of where if you're given a second chance with a second world, how good you're going to make it. And the imagery started to connect with all those themes, the mandala imagery of the discs, and also the fact that we were working all day long with light. You know, it was all about light. There's a story that in Russia, one of the munitions factories switched to making church bells, and all the cursing stopped after a while. So, you know, I did believe in the themes having to do with connecting with the highest version of yourself.
Thank you.
This question is also for Mr. Lisberger. In Legacy, when Gary Hepburn uploads the new operating system version on the internet, I was curious if when you constructed the story, when you wrote the story back in the 80s, and Tron makes that comment, he's like, this could be a free system again. If that just was that intended? I mean, that was before Bill Gates even came out with Windows. So it's like it just had to do with the foresight, or is that just like the most important?
Yeah, I've wondered about some of the things. You know, it's called NCOM. There was no com back then. There was no .com. You know, so after a while it starts to snowball. You're on some sort of inertia, and it feeds on itself. Yeah, it seemed, how do I put this? When there was nothing there really, if you thought about it, you could really see that it had to go in certain directions, that there was a sense of an inevitability, because you were just thinking of it in a foundation sense. Whereas now it's so complex that you have to specialize. But when there was nothing, you know, it's when you're the first ones to cross the Rockies, you know, you're looking out at the wilderness of the West, and I think it's easier to imagine what is going to be required to get people to live in the, you know, the West that hasn't been conquered than it is for people later once civilization has come in and brought all the baggage of the good and the bad and the bad and the good. So.
I think the guy buying the Tron t-shirt with the Tron disc has to.
I have a double question. We were talking earlier about 1 gigabyte being too much. How much memory did you guys actually use on the special effects shots of this movie?
Each effects for each computer company had their own hardware and software. But III had a computer called the FUN, the F1. It was a single pipeline computer at 256K and 1 megahertz.
That was considered the ultimate.
So as Steven said, all of the computer decisions made in Tron are infinitely less than just the particles in one frame of Legacy.
Way there in the back.
My question is regarding, you guys, obviously you guys spent a lot on the technology of making the film, but as far as the creative aspect, like how did you pick your shots? You were thinking in terms of the animation, but were you thinking of creatively, or were you dissatisfied with whatever you could get?
Well, you know, a lot of credit goes to the great Mobius for some of the shots in this film, maybe the best one. I mean, we had storyboarded the film down in Venice, and it was what more could you ask? You know, we presented the storyboard to Mobius, and he's a very spiritual man too, and he went over it, and I learned a lot from him. He was a major influence in, you know, working that stuff out. But as we talked about it, it wasn't on the day. You know, we had really, by the time we were making some of these shots, they had been filtered down through, you know, over a year of, you know, what really is going to be the moment when the disc, you know, is connected to the user. And I found that was the best way to work with these mega talented people like Sid and Mobius, is to, strangely, not to give them total freedom with a blank slate. Because the problem with guys like Sid is he doesn't make any changes. Sid does your light cycle, and if you don't like it, that's done. You don't say to Sid, hey, I'll rip a fender, you know. So you better work it all out and say, this is as far as we got, Sid. And, you know, now you take it, but you've already created some parameters. But let me say one more thing about the spiritual thing quickly, which just came back to me, which is what's really happened now is we've divided the world in two through this process. It's, you know, there's two realities. And I don't think any of us anticipated that the two realities were going to pull on us with such equal strength. And I think it's created a desire to put the two worlds back together. But that was already, you know, the disc and the notion of communicating between the programs and the users was already something that I felt that if you divide the world up for human beings, you have to have some hope of making it whole again. Because that's, you know, we need wholeness.
Hi.
Last question.
I would like to speak with Steven Lisberger and Ellenshaw. What year did you guys start working on Tron? Was that back in 1979, 1980?
It was probably the first ideas for Tron probably go back to Boston and around 78, 77, somewhere back there.
I started on the movie in 1980, late 80, I got involved.
All right, and I'm still working on it.
One last comment. You know, we did a show of hands here. There's a lot of people here who never saw the film when it first came out. Was there
They
anybody?
probably were born.
I know. How many people here who saw this on the screen for the first time tonight?
Oh, wow.
Okay.
You know, there's a Blu-ray DVD that will be out in April.
And here's the thing, you know, we did this 5 years ago. Sold out then. We've done it at the Academy. It's sold out. They're doing it at the DGA next week, and it'll probably sell out. And now there's an animated series as well. It's going to keep on going. That's a pretty good legacy. And with that, I'll say end of line, and thank